and it's just a horrible thing. We in Israel have had our fair share of wars, and I can tell you one big lesson. Wars are easy to start and very difficult to finish. Things are looking bad on the ground right now, but it's important to understand that if world leaders don't act quickly, it can get much worse. I'm talking about untold loss of life, total destruction of Ukraine, millions of refugees, and it's not too late. It's the responsibility of the major players in the world to act rapidly, to get the two sides out of the battlefield and to the negotiating table.
So going back in the time machine to 1999, when we co-founded Cyota, that actually protected financial institutions against cybercrime, and cybersecurity was not as trendy as it seems to be right now. What drove you to co-found a company in the cybersecurity space and actually to become one of the driving forces behind the explosive growth of this field in Israel?
Well, it's we, not me. We did it together with also with Leo and Ben and other good people. We had seen early on that there's this thing called e-commerce, means buying things on the internet. And in the early times, you'd buy a product and sometimes send a check in an envelope because people didn't trust the internet and were afraid of buying on the internet. And that brings me perhaps to the main issue of security, which is balancing security with life, balancing COVID with life. If you can take things to the extreme, if you look at the world through a prism of security only, then we'll all be behind gates and walls and cloistered. During COVID, we could all stay at home forever and there wouldn't be COVID, but there wouldn't be life. So the main challenge and the main objective is to lead reasonable and good lives amid security and not turn security into the main issue. It's our jobs, folks over here, folks in business and high tech and military and government agencies, to ensure that people can lead lives. And that's when we went ahead and started building systems that allowed people to interact, transfer money, buy stuff on the internet without having to be worried that they'll be hacked.
So there have been billions of dollars invested in Israeli cybersecurity companies in the past year. What do we need to do to assure that we continue evolving this space and that Israel continues to dominate this space?
Well, I'll tell you what we don't need. First of all, the Israeli government doesn't need to invest more money in the high-tech arena. Money is not an issue. There's two things the government can do to help cybersecurity in Israel and the high-tech in Israel. The first and foremost is don't harm it. Don't harm it. If you know, we don't do dumb stuff, legislate bad laws that make lives more difficult, to found companies, to build companies, to run companies, to merge, to be acquired or to acquire. If we don't make it hard, then we've done a lot. And Michal knows that we have this WhatsApp group, the four of us. So the three other founders, each of them went on and founded or is in a billion-dollar company. I'm the gray sheep who went to politics. But once or a month or 2 months, I ask everyone in the group, have we done anything dumb? Have we legislated anything stupid? Is there anything bad that we're about to do? Usually they say, no, everything's fine. But once every year or two, you say, yeah, there's a stupid law that's going to hurt high tech. And then I go and intercept it. The second thing, though, we do need is people. And Israel is hungry for talent. We we've exhausted the talent pool of the mainstream Israel, and then there's a bunch of new sources of talent that we have to tap upon. First pool of talent is the periphery, the Galilee, Negev. It's funny, I say periphery. You know, in America, you'd be talking to someone from the valley and he's thinking Oklahoma or Omaha, Nebraska, which is 2.5 weeks away. The periphery in Israel is 50 minutes away, but it's the periphery. And we need boys and girls from Sderot, from Kiryat Shmona, to enter 8200, to enter in the education system, not only cyber, but all the STEM areas and beyond. Second group is the Haredim. We are fulfilling a dream of mine 10 years ago when everyone was talking about getting the Haredim to serve in the military, which is certainly would be right, because I did the army, you did the army, but it's not going to work. My dream was precisely the opposite, to let them off the hook for a few years at a young age so they can enter the workforce. Even though it's not fair, it's the smart thing to do. And we're about pretty soon to complete the legislation that's going to let tens of thousands of young ultra-Orthodox men go out and work if they want. They won't have to stay in the yeshiva, and there's a lot of brain over there, but they don't have English, they don't have math, and we're going to have to figure out fairly rapid ways to get the smarter ones in. Third pool is the Arab sector. We've got lots of young, talented Arab young men and women and they are joining high tech, but it could happen much more rapidly. But I think the success stories are happening. And finally, I'll say there's another potential pool which I'm all in also. We got to try it out, and that's the Palestinians in Ramallah, primarily, but not only. My instruction to the government is to make it smooth so they can work in Israeli high-tech, and we'll see. If it works, it could be amazing. I don't know that it will work, but I'm certainly interested in trying.
So you've been recently advocating for international collaboration between countries to protect civilians, businesses, civil infrastructure. How do you envision that working, and what makes you believe it can actually work?
It's vital. Collaboration is not only a cliche of kumbaya and let's all be together. It's a very practical thing. Let me give you an example. Let's say we're in a subway in New York. We lived in Manhattan. So let's say there's a pickpocket who's going in one of those subway cars and pickpocketing one person, and then 2 minutes later another. Now, if there's no communication between anyone, so Michal gets pickpocketed, but she doesn't talk. She knows she just got pickpocketed. And 2 minutes later, John gets pickpocketed, and 5 minutes later, Lisa gets pickpocketed. But if there is collaboration, she says, whoa, I'm getting pickpocketed. And then everyone else can defend himself against that pickpocketing. Now, that's, I'm trying to illustrate it, but this is not theory. This is reality. Israel is now signing deals with other countries where we share in real time, we share potential malicious activities, and by a bunch of countries in real time seeing a potential malicious activity means we have a much higher chance of saying, yes, this is malicious, because the biggest problem for defense is identifying noise or distinguishing noise and actual malicious activity. The amount of interaction and of stuff going on is infinite, and the issue is to identify who are the bad guys within this big ocean of good guys. So if, for example, we're in touch with the UK and Italy and India and a bunch of other countries, and we're all getting attacked from a new MO, a new modus operandi, within minutes, we can all defend ourselves, while if we were each isolated, we wouldn't know, in fact, that it's a malicious activity. That's why we're rapidly expanding this. Gabi, where's Gabi? Poldnoy. First of all, Mazel Tov. I just hired him to run Israel's cyber defense. He's a great guy. I actually had to really work hard to get Gabi to join. He said no, and I said no to the no, and here we are. But one of the things Gabi's going to do is really run quickly and sign more and more collaboration deals with other countries. It's on G to G, but it's also relevant in the business arena.
Cyber warfare is a critical component of modern warfare, and once upon a time you were either a fighter in the field or a fighter on the keyboard. And could you share some insight into the recent announcement by the Chief of Staff of the IDF about the, I guess, tech and cyber training for combat soldiers?
Yeah, so the future is hybrid. The future is hybrid warfare, cyber and physical combined. So if 100 years ago we were talking about tanks to tanks, airplanes to tanks, infantry to airplanes or whatever, and over the past few decades we've seen a tremendous amount of cyber to cyber. So hacking websites or hacking critical internet infrastructure. Over the past few years, we've seen much, let's call cyber C, let's call physical P. So used to be P2P 100 years ago, or the past 20 years C to C, but we're seeing much more C to P, which means cyber that actually creates a physical impact. It could change or influence sewage systems. It can change the amount of chloride in the water and potentially poison people. It can have real-life effect. And we can also see P2C, where in a war, tanks might want to capture data centers and disconnect them, or hit the critical infrastructure. But that's at the strategic level. Also on the operational level, IDF is now promoting a remarkable hybrid program where folks who are brilliant boys and girls who are fighters will also be trained in various cyber activities and bring it to a tactical level. Israel has really a remarkable pool of young men and women in the military, which is probably the best.
And you've been watching Prime Minister Naftali Bennett on the stage here at the Cybertech conference underway. Last day of the conference today in Tel Aviv, commenting on a range of issues, primarily the Israeli tech scene, but he did open the discussion with some words on the ongoing war in Ukraine. And we do have our senior international affairs correspondent, Owen Alterman, in the studio here. Just a bit of analysis, Owen. We heard him talk about the responsibility, as he put it, of the world to end this war, to make steps to resolve the conflict. Israel's been trying to maintain some form of neutrality around this. How did the words sound today, and what can you say about Israel's position today on day 8?
Well, it turns out war is bad. I mean, extra, you hear all about it, shouted from the newsstands. That's obviously we're